Rancher grabbed her by the waist after the storm and said, "If you leave again, I'm coming with you." The storm had passed, but its marks were still everywhere. The countryside smelled of wet earth and fresh rain, and the once golden fields were now dark with mud. Small branches and leaves were scattered across the farm, and the barn's old wooden doors hung crooked, as if struggling to hold themselves upright. Elena stood at the edge of the property, her boots sinking slightly into the wet ground. The wind had calmed, but a quiet tension lingered in the air. She hugged her arms around herself, shivering, not from cold, but from a mix of exhaustion and something else she couldn't quite name. Returning to this place after so many years had been harder than she imagined. Elena had grown up here, in this wide, open countryside surrounded by fields, animals, and endless skies. As a child, she had loved the freedom it offered, the way the sun seemed to touch everything, making even the smallest flowers shine. But she had left all of it behind when she went to the city for college. The city was exciting, fast, and full of opportunities. It promised adventure and a life she thought she wanted. And for a while it had delivered exactly that. But now, standing in the aftermath of the storm, Elena realized how much she had missed this place. The quiet, the work, the simplicity, and yes, even the people she had tried to leave behind. She walked slowly toward the barn, noticing the damage up close. The wooden boards were splintered, and the roof had a small hole through which rainwater still dripped. Her father would be upset, she thought, though he had always been too proud to complain. He believed in hard work and quiet resilience. But it wasn't just the farm she was thinking about. It was Luke. Even after all these years, she could feel his presence. She remembered him clearly, tall, strong, and quiet, with a gaze that seemed to see everything, even the parts of her she tried to hide. They had been close once, very close, and though she had left suddenly, without explanation, she had never stopped thinking about him. As she approached the barn, she saw him. Luke was already working, his hands covered in mud and sawdust, his sleeves rolled up to the elbows. He was moving with the kind of strength that only comes from years of hard labor, carrying heavy boards and adjusting fallen fences. His hair, damp from the rain, clung slightly to his forehead, and his eyes, those deep, steady eyes, were fixed on the task before him. For a moment, Elena hesitated. Seeing him again stirred something deep inside her. Memories of laughter, of long summer evenings, when they had walked through these same fields, talking about everything and nothing. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that she had a job to do. "Luke?" Her voice was soft, almost uncertain. She wasn't sure what she expected. Anger, warmth, indifference. Luke looked up, and for a brief second his expression didn't change. Then, slowly, recognition softened his features. "Elena," he said, his voice low but steady. "You're back." "Yes," she replied, trying to sound casual, though her stomach tightened. I came to help."
After the storm, everything's a mess. He nodded, turning back to the boards he was fixing.
"It's worse than it looks," he admitted. "The wind tore through the roof, and the fences are broken. We've got some work to do." Elena felt a pang of something. Regret, perhaps, or longing. She had wanted to avoid him, to keep her emotions in check, but seeing him now made that impossible. She moved closer, careful not to step on the mud, and began to pick up fallen branches. As they worked side by side, the silence between them was heavy but not uncomfortable. Each movement, each glance, seemed to carry a history neither of them had forgotten. Elena remembered the summers they had spent together, riding horses through the fields, sitting under the big oak tree by the river, sharing secrets and dreams. She had left abruptly, thinking the city was calling her, and leaving Luke behind had been the hardest part of all. Luke finally spoke, breaking the silence. "You haven't changed much," he said, his tone teasing but not unkind. "Still careful where you step. Still worrying too much about what you can't control." Elena couldn't help but smile. "And you? Still bossing everyone around? Still acting like nothing bothers you?" He chuckled, a short, quiet laugh that made her heart flutter. "Maybe, but I've learned a few things, like how storms can leave more than just mess. They leave chances to fix what's broken." Elena paused, thinking about his words. She wondered if he meant the farm or if he meant them. She had left because she was afraid of being tied down, afraid of facing feelings she didn't know how to handle. But now, seeing him here, she realized that some things, no matter how much you try to escape them, stay with you. Luke had stayed. He had stayed with the farm, with life here, with everything she had tried to leave behind. The day passed slowly, the two of them working together. Every now and then, their hands brushed while lifting boards or moving debris. Each touch sent a jolt through her, and she noticed that Luke seemed to hesitate slightly too, as if he were fighting against emotions he didn't want to show. The barn slowly began to look more like itself again, the roof patched, the walls reinforced. Yet no matter how much they accomplished, the distance between them felt charged, heavy with words unspoken. By late afternoon, the sky had cleared completely, leaving the fields glistening under the golden light of the sun. Elena wiped the sweat and rain from her forehead and looked at Luke. He was leaning against the fence, his hands resting on the top rail, watching the repaired barn. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the silence stretching between them. "You did a lot today," Elena said softly. Luke shrugged, a small smile playing at his lips. "Not as much as you. You've got a way with getting things done, even after all these years." Elena felt warmth spread through her chest. Compliments from Luke were rare, and she knew they were genuine. I've missed this," she admitted quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I missed this place, and I missed you." Luke's gaze held hers, steady and unwavering. The air between them seemed to hum with tension, memories, and unspoken emotions. He didn't say anything immediately, just studied her, as if deciding what to do next. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and careful. "You shouldn't have left," he said. "But you're here now, and that's what matters." Elena's heart raced. She wanted to say something, anything, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she nodded, letting the silence carry the weight of everything they hadn't said for years. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the fields, Elena felt a strange mixture of fear and hope. The storm had passed, leaving destruction behind, but it had also brought her back to a place she had loved, a life she had abandoned, and a person she had never truly forgotten. And for the first time in a long while, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things could be different this time. Maybe the past didn't have to define the future. The next morning, the sun rose gently over the wet fields, spreading golden light across the barn and the fences they had repaired the day before. Aileen woke early, the quiet of the countryside filling her ears. Birds chirped in the distance, and the smell of fresh hay mingled with the scent of wet soil. She dressed quickly, wanting to help Luke and her family before the day grew too hot. Even though her city life had taught her independence, something about the farm made her feel different, more grounded, more alive. When she stepped outside, she saw Luke already moving about the property. He was checking the fences along the pasture, his boots sinking slightly into the soft, wet earth. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing strong forearms, and the muscles in his back flexed as he lifted each wooden post with ease. For a moment, Elena just watched him, letting the early sunlight warm her face. She couldn't believe how long it had been since she'd seen him. The years in the city had changed her, but some things about him remained the same. The way he carried himself, the way he moved, calm, careful, and steady, was familiar and reassuring all at once. "Morning," she called, her voice soft. Luke turned his head, offering a small, tired smile. "Morning? Sleep well?" "Yes," Elena said, though the truth was complicated. She had slept fitfully, her mind replaying memories of their shared past. Nights in the city had been lonely, and even surrounded by people. She had sometimes felt isolated. Here, in the fields, with Luke nearby, she felt more herself than she had in years. Luke nodded, then returned to the fence, hammering nails into the wood with precise, measured strikes. Elena walked over to him, carrying a bundle of rope she had found in the barn. "I thought these might be useful," she said, handing it to him. He accepted it without looking at her, but she noticed the way his fingers brushed hers. Brief, almost accidental, but it sent a shiver up her spine. "Thanks," he said finally, pausing to secure a knot. "We'll need this for the gates." They worked together in silence for a while, each focused on the task at hand. But beneath the silence, a quiet tension grew, a mixture of memory, regret, and something neither wanted to name aloud. Every glance, every touch, carried weight. Elena remembered the nights they had spent talking under the stars, the shared laughter, and the promises they had made. She had thought leaving the countryside would mean leaving him behind. But standing here now, she realized some bonds could never be broken by distance or time. After a while, Luke finally spoke. "You haven't changed much," he said, his voice low and almost teasing. "Still careful where you step." "Still thinking too much." Elena smiled. "And you? Still trying to do everything yourself?" He gave a short laugh. "Maybe, but I've learned a few things. Like sometimes you need help, even if it's someone you didn't expect." Her heart skipped a beat at the words. Did he mean her? She wasn't sure. She wanted to ask, but instead, she focused on the fence, pretending to tie a knot that had long been loose. Yet the warmth of his words lingered. As the morning passed, Elena noticed Luke watching her sometimes. Not constantly, but in moments when she thought he was focused elsewhere. He noticed the way she moved, the way she lifted boards, and even the way she paused to adjust her hair or brush sweat from her forehead. She could feel his gaze, and it stirred something inside her, an ache, a longing, and a familiarity that was almost painful. Around midday they paused for a short break. Luke leaned against the fence, wiping sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. Elena sat on a nearby hay bale, trying to catch her breath. The farm was quiet, except for the distant sound of a creek and the soft rustling of leaves in the wind. "I didn't expect you to come back," Luke said quietly, breaking the silence. Elena looked at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his voice. I needed to," she admitted. "I thought I could handle the city life on my own, but it wasn't enough. I needed this." She gestured broadly at the farm, the fields, the barn. "And I needed you." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied her, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Elena felt a surge of fear. Was he angry? Disappointed? Would he reject her after all these years? But then his lips curved into a small, reluctant smile. "You've always had a way of coming back when it matters," he said, his voice softer now, "even when I didn't think you would." Elena felt her chest tighten. Those words carried more than they seemed. They hinted at the past, at pain, and at longing. She wanted to reach out, to touch him, to tell him everything she had felt since she left. But the words were heavy, and fear held them back. Instead, she nodded. "I'm here now," she said. "That has to count for something." He nodded in return, and for a moment the tension between them eased. They returned to work, side by side, the rhythm of the farm giving them both a sense of purpose. Every movement, every shared task seemed to bring them closer, not just physically, but emotionally. It was as if the farm itself had a way of healing old wounds, of reminding them of what they had once shared and what they might still have. As the day wore on, Elena found herself reflecting on the past. She remembered the summer evenings spent under the old oak tree, when the air smelled of wild flowers and the river glimmered in the fading sunlight. She remembered Luke's laughter, the warmth of his hand in hers, and the comfort of knowing someone truly understood her. Leaving had seemed like the right choice at the time, but now she realized it had only delayed what was meant to be. Luke noticed her pause and spoke gently. "You're thinking too much again." Elena laughed softly, a little embarrassed. "Maybe, but it's hard not to think when everything feels so different now." He nodded slowly. "I know. Things have changed, yes, but some things don't change. Like how stubborn you are. Like how careful you are with everything around you. And like how you always leave a part of yourself behind, even when you try not to." Elena's breath caught. His words were direct, yet filled with emotion. She wanted to respond, to tell him that leaving had been the hardest choice of her life, that she had never stopped thinking about him. But the words were heavy, and tears threatened to form in her eyes. They worked in silence again, the air thick with unspoken words. Every glance, every movement seemed to carry a memory of the past and a possibility for the future. The sun began to lower, casting long shadows across the fields and highlighting the sweat and dirt on their clothes. They were tired, but there was a quiet satisfaction in the work they had done together. As evening approached, Elena looked at the barn. The repairs were holding, the fences were sturdy, and the farm seemed ready to face whatever came next. But it wasn't just the farm that had been repaired. It was something between her and Luke. The storm had brought them back together, forcing them to confront memories and emotions they had tried to avoid. Luke finally spoke, breaking the silence that had grown between them. "You know," he said, his voice quiet but steady, "I've missed having you around. More than I realized." Elena felt a lump in her throat. "I've missed this too," she admitted. "I've missed us, even if I didn't understand it at the time." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and for the first time since she returned, Elena saw something in his eyes that she had almost forgotten. Hope. Hope that maybe, despite the years and mistakes, they could find a way back to each other. The evening sky turned shades of orange and pink, and the farm was bathed in a warm glow. Elena and Luke stood together for a moment, simply looking at the land, at the barn, at the fences. It was peaceful, yet charged with anticipation. Something had shifted between them, an unspoken understanding that their story was not over, that there were still choices to be made, and that perhaps, just perhaps, the future could be different. Elena felt a deep sense of calm. The storm had passed, both literally and figuratively, and now, standing here with Luke, she realized that coming back had been the right choice. For the farm, yes, but more importantly, for her heart. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that the hardest part was over. The next part of their story, whatever it might be, was waiting to be written together. The next few days passed with a mix of hard work and quiet reflection. Elena and Luke spent long hours repairing fences, clearing debris, and tending to the animals. Each day the farm seemed to recover, slowly returning to its familiar rhythm. Yet, despite the busyness of their tasks, an invisible tension hung between them, an unspoken question of what they felt for each other and whether the past could ever truly be left behind. Elena woke early one morning, the soft sunlight streaming through the old farmhouse windows. She dressed quickly, trying to shake off a restless sleep. Her mind was full of thoughts she couldn't silence, thoughts of Luke, of the moments they had shared, and of all the words they had left unsaid. She knew she had to focus on the work, but even as she ate a quick breakfast, she felt a nervous excitement. Something in the air was shifting, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Stepping outside, she saw Luke already at the edge of the pasture. He was checking on the livestock, moving with careful precision. Even after all these years, he still carried himself with quiet strength and steady confidence. Elena watched him for a moment, feeling a familiar pull in her chest. It had been so long since she had felt this way, and yet it all came rushing back, stronger than ever. "Morning," she called softly. Luke turned, a small smile on his face. "Morning. Ready for another day?" "Yes," she said, trying to sound confident, though her heart was racing. "Let's get to it." They worked together through the morning, their movements in sync, as if no time had passed at all. The rhythm of their labor allowed small moments of connection, shared glances, quick smiles, and the occasional brush of their hands as they lifted boards or passed tools. Elena felt a warmth in these moments, a comfort she hadn't realized she missed so deeply. But with that warmth came uncertainty. She wanted to speak, to ask about his feelings, but fear held her back. Around midday the sun was high, and the heat made them both slow their pace. They paused under the shade of an old oak tree near the creek, sitting on a fallen log. Luke reached for a canteen of water and handed it to her. Their fingers brushed briefly, sending a jolt of electricity through Elena. She quickly looked away, pretending to be busy with her own hands. Luke spoke first, his voice low and hesitant. "You've changed," he said, "but some things haven't. You still worry too much, still overthink everything." Elena laughed softly, trying to hide the flutter in her chest. "And you? Still acting like you have everything under control? Still refusing help?" He shrugged, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Maybe. But I've learned some things too, like how important it is to face what matters before it's too late." She felt her heart tighten at his words, sensing the meaning behind them. "And what matters to you, Luke?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked down at the ground, as if weighing his words carefully. Then he spoke, his voice firm but filled with emotion. "You matter, Elena. You've always mattered. And I've never stopped caring about you, no matter how far you went." Elena's breath caught. She had imagined this conversation countless times, but hearing the words from him, spoken with such sincerity, was overwhelming. She wanted to speak, to tell him how she had felt, how much she had missed him, but the words were heavy, and tears threatened to fill her eyes. Instead, she simply nodded, letting the silence carry the weight of their shared emotions. Luke reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered near her cheek, and for a moment she could feel the depth of his feelings without needing any more words. They returned to work after their brief rest, the quiet moments between them charged with unspoken tension. Every glance, every small touch seemed to speak volumes. Elena realized that the storm had not only damaged the farm, but had also torn away the barriers between them, leaving them exposed to feelings they could no longer ignore. By late afternoon, the air had grown cooler, and the sun began to dip toward the horizon. The long day of labor had left them both tired, but there was a sense of satisfaction in the work they had accomplished. The barn was stronger, the fences sturdier, and the farm seemed ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Yet, despite the physical repairs, the emotional landscape between them remained uncertain. Elena found herself stealing glances at Luke as he worked, noticing the way his muscles flexed, the determination in his eyes, and the subtle changes in his expression when he looked at her. She realized that her feelings for him were stronger than she had admitted, even to herself. Luke, for his part, seemed equally aware of the growing tension. He watched her carefully, noting every movement, every reaction. He wanted to speak, to tell her how he felt, but he feared saying the wrong thing or pushing her away. Instead, he focused on the work, letting their shared labor speak for him, hoping that she could feel the depth of his emotions through the quiet moments they shared. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Elena paused to catch her breath. She looked at Luke, who was adjusting a gate near the barn. His face was set in concentration, but she could see the faint lines of worry etched around his eyes. She wanted to reach out, to bridge the distance between them, but something held her back. Fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, and the memories of the pain that had come when they were apart before. Finally, Luke spoke, breaking the silence. "Elena, can I ask you something?" She looked at him, surprised by the sudden seriousness in his voice. "Of course," she replied. He took a deep breath, his eyes locking with hers. "Do you regret coming back? Or coming here at all?" Elena's heart raced. She wanted to answer honestly, to tell him that returning had been the hardest decision of her life, but also the most necessary. "No," she said finally, her voice steady. "I don't regret it. Not for a moment. Being here, with you, it feels right, even if it's hard to face what I left behind." Luke's eyes softened, and he took a step closer. "I've waited a long time for this," he admitted. "For you to come back. For us to have a chance to make things right. I don't want to lose you again." Elena felt tears prick at her eyes, the weight of his words settling over her like a warm blanket. She had carried guilt and regret for years, thinking she had ruined everything by leaving. But now, standing here with him, she realized that the past did not have to define their future. There was still hope, still possibility, and still a chance to rebuild what they had lost. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken emotion. The wind rustled the leaves above, carrying the faint scent of rain from the storm that had passed days before. The farm was quiet, the animals settled for the evening, and the world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would happen next. Luke reached out slowly, his hand brushing against Elena's waist, not forceful, but protective, grounding. She felt a shiver run through her at the contact, a mix of fear, longing, and recognition of the bond they had always shared. His gaze met hers, intense and unwavering, as he spoke softly, almost a whisper. "If you leave again, I'm coming with you." Elena's breath caught in her throat. His words were both a promise and a warning, filled with vulnerability and desire. She had spent years running from the fear of commitment, from the intensity of her feelings for him. But now, hearing him say those words, she felt something shift inside her. The walls she had built around her heart began to crumble, leaving her open to the possibility of love again. They stood there for a long moment, the world around them fading into the background. The farm, the fields, the barn, it all seemed smaller, less important than the connection between them. Elena realized that she had come back not just to help with the farm, but to confront the feelings she had buried for so long. And Luke had come back too, not physically but emotionally, standing firm in the space between them, ready to fight for what mattered most. As the evening settled into night, Elena and Luke returned to the farmhouse, both quiet, both thoughtful. The work of the day was done, but the work of their hearts had only just begun. They had faced the storm together, both literal and emotional, and had begun to confront the truths they had long avoided. Elena felt a mix of relief and anticipation. The storm had left destruction behind, but it had also cleared the way for something new, something fragile yet strong, something filled with hope, yet tempered by past mistakes. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt ready to face it, together. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the countryside, painting the fields in shades of gold. A soft breeze carried the scent of fresh hay and damp earth, mixing with the faint smell of smoke from the farmhouse chimney. Elena woke early, as she had been doing since returning, and felt a strange mixture of excitement and nervousness. She knew today would be different. There was a weight in the air she couldn't ignore, a feeling that something important was about to happen between her and Luke. She dressed quickly, choosing simple clothes suitable for the work ahead, but her hands trembled slightly as she tied her boots. She paused for a moment at the door, taking in the view of the farm. The storm had caused damage, but the work they had done together had begun to restore not just the land, but something deeper, something in both of them. She took a deep breath and stepped outside. Luke was already at the edge of the pasture, leaning against the fence, watching the sunrise. His silhouette against the golden light was familiar and comforting, yet it made her heart beat faster than it should have. He turned his head as she approached, and a small, genuine smile appeared on his face. "Morning," he said simply. "Morning," Elena replied, trying to sound calm, though her stomach fluttered. They worked together quietly at first, repairing the fence along the far edge of the pasture. Their movements were careful, almost synchronized, as if their bodies remembered the rhythm of working side by side, even after all these years apart. Every so often their hands brushed as they passed nails, boards, or tools, sending small jolts of electricity through her body. She wondered if he felt it too. After a while, Luke stopped and wiped sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. He leaned against a post, watching her work. "Elena," he said slowly, "can I ask you something?" She paused, looking at him with curiosity and a little apprehension. "Of course," she said. "Why did you leave?" His voice was calm but serious, and there was no accusation in it, only a quiet desire to understand. Elena swallowed hard. She had asked herself the same question many times over the years. I was scared," she admitted finally. "Scared of staying in one place, scared of feeling too much. I thought the city was where I was supposed to be, where I could be free. But I wasn't free. Not really. I left, but a part of me stayed here. With you, with this farm, with everything I couldn't bring myself to let go of." Luke listened, his expression softening as she spoke. There was a long pause before he responded. "I waited for you," he said quietly. "Even when I thought you wouldn't come back, I waited, because I knew you'd come back if it mattered. And it seems it does." Her heart clenched at his words. She had imagined this moment countless times in her mind, but the reality was far more powerful than anything she had dreamed. Tears threatened to spill, but she blinked them back, wanting to stay strong in front of him. Luke stepped closer, his presence solid and reassuring. "Elena," he said softly, "I never stopped caring. I never stopped hoping that one day, maybe one day, you'd see that this, us, it could work." Elena felt her chest tighten. His words, spoken with such honesty and emotion, left her breathless. She wanted to tell him everything she had felt over the years, every lonely night in the city, every moment she had missed him. But the words were too many, too tangled to come out all at once. Instead, she said, "I've missed you. I didn't know how to say it before, but I do now. I want to try if you'll let me." Luke reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I'll always let you try," he said, his eyes locking with hers. "I don't want to lose you again. Not ever." For a moment they simply stood there, holding hands, letting the world around them fade away. The farm, the animals, the fields, they were all there, but they didn't matter. What mattered was the connection between them, the unspoken bond that had survived years of distance and fear. As they returned to the work, the mood between them had shifted. Their movements were lighter, their conversations more open. Elena found herself laughing at Luke's jokes, teasing him gently about his stubbornness, and feeling a sense of closeness she hadn't felt in years. Luke, in turn, was more relaxed, more willing to share his thoughts and feelings. The walls they had built around themselves were slowly crumbling, brick by brick, as they allowed honesty and vulnerability to enter. Around midday, they took a break under the large oak tree near the creek. The sun was high, but a gentle breeze kept the air pleasant. Luke handed Elena a bottle of water, their fingers brushing again in that familiar electric way. "You know," he said softly, "I've imagined this moment for so long. Talking to you like this, being near you, I thought it might never happen." Elena smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I've imagined it too," she admitted. "But it's even better than I thought it would be." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Elena," he said quietly, "I want to be honest with you. I've been holding back, afraid of losing you again. But I can't anymore. I care about you more than I can explain. And I want us to have a future together, if you'll let me." Her heart raced. She had spent years running from this feeling, from the intensity of her emotions, but now she realized she didn't want to run anymore. She wanted to be with him, to rebuild what they had lost, to create something new together. "I want that too," she said softly. "I want us. I don't want to hide from how I feel anymore." Luke's smile was warm and reassuring. He pulled her into a gentle hug, holding her close, as if he could protect her from everything that had gone wrong in the past. Elena rested her head on his shoulder, feeling safe and cherished in a way she hadn't in years. The warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart, and the sincerity of his embrace melted away all the fear and hesitation she had carried. They stayed like that for a long moment, the world around them, quiet and still. The farm, the creek, and the field seemed to watch over them, as if approving of this new beginning. For the first time in a long while, Elena felt truly at peace. She had returned to the place she loved, to the person she loved, and she knew that they could face whatever challenges lay ahead together. As the afternoon wore on, they continued their work, moving closer together in both body and heart. Every glance, every smile, every gentle touch reinforced the bond that had always been there, waiting for the right moment to reemerge. The storm had brought destruction, yes, but it had also brought clarity, forcing them to confront the feelings they had long ignored. By evening, the sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow across the fields. Elena and Luke stood together, looking at the farm they had repaired and nurtured back to life. The work of the day had left them tired but fulfilled. More importantly, the emotional work they had begun was taking root. They had shared truths, expressed their feelings, and taken the first steps toward rebuilding a connection that had survived years of separation. Luke turned to Elena, his eyes reflecting the warmth of the setting sun. "We've been through a lot," he said softly. "But I believe we can get through anything, as long as we face it together." Elena smiled, feeling tears of relief and happiness welling in her eyes. "I believe that too," she said. "I don't want to go back to the way things were. I want to move forward with you." He reached for her hand again, holding it gently, firmly, as if to reassure both of them that this time nothing would tear them apart. "Then we'll do it together," he said. As night fell, they walked slowly back to the farmhouse, hand in hand, feeling a sense of hope and renewal. The storm had left scars on the land, but it had also cleared a path for love, understanding, and a second chance. Elena knew that there would still be challenges ahead, but she also knew that with Luke by her side, they could face anything. For the first time in years, she felt ready to embrace the future. And as they stepped inside the farmhouse, the warm light welcoming them home, she realized that the hardest part, facing their emotions, was finally behind them. Together, they had begun to write a new chapter, one filled with honesty, trust, and love. And for Elena, that was worth more than anything she had left behind in the city, or in her past. The morning after their heartfelt conversation, Elena woke feeling lighter than she had in years. The air was fresh, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and dew from the fields. The farm was quiet, almost peaceful, except for the occasional lowing of cows or the cluck of chickens. She dressed quickly, her heart steady but excited. Today felt different, not because of the work she would do, but because she finally understood where she belonged. She belonged here, on this farm, with Luke by her side. When she stepped outside, Luke was already moving through the pastures, checking on the animals. He noticed her immediately and smiled warmly, his eyes lighting up in that familiar way that always made her heart skip a beat. "Morning," he called. "Morning," she replied, smiling back. For a while they worked side by side, fixing the remaining sections of the fences and tending to the fields that had been damaged during the storm. Every movement was easy and natural, as if no time had passed since they had last worked together. There was laughter in their voices, light teasing, and small moments of connection, brushes of hands, shared smiles, and quiet looks that spoke volumes. The farm was coming back to life, and so were they. Around midday, they paused by the creek to rest. Elena leaned against the tree trunk, watching the water ripple in the sunlight. Luke sat beside her, handing her a bottle of water. Their fingers brushed as she took it, and she felt the familiar shiver run down her spine. "Luke," she said softly, I don't want to leave again." He looked at her, his eyes serious yet gentle. "You don't have to," he said. "Not if you don't want to. I want you here. I want us to be here, together." Elena's chest tightened. Those words had been what she had longed to hear for years, and now that she did, she felt both relief and joy. "I want that too," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Luke reached for her hand, holding it firmly yet tenderly. "Then we make it work," he said. "We face whatever comes together. No more running, no more hiding." Elena smiled, feeling tears of happiness welling in her eyes. She had spent so long avoiding her feelings, afraid of being tied down, afraid of being hurt again. But now, with Luke by her side, She knew she didn't have to be afraid anymore. They had both changed, grown, and learned what mattered most, and that was each other. They returned to the work with a renewed energy. Even the animals seemed to sense the change, moving calmly around them, as if the farm itself approved of this new beginning. Each task they completed together, from mending fences to feeding the livestock, felt like a small step toward building a life together. The physical work mirrored their emotional journey, careful, deliberate, and full of purpose. By late afternoon, the sun began to cast long shadows across the fields. Elena and Luke paused again, looking at the work they had done. The farm, though still bearing some scars from the storm, looked whole and alive. More importantly, they felt whole too, healed, connected, and ready to face the future together. Luke turned to Elena, his eyes soft but determined. "You know," he said, "I never imagined I'd get a second chance with you, but here you are and it feels right. I don't want to waste it." Elena reached out and gently touched his arm. "Neither do I," she said. "I want to be here, with you. I want to stay and build something real, something lasting." He smiled, relief and happiness shining in his eyes. "Then we start now," he said. "No more doubts, no more fears. We face everything together." They stood there for a long moment, hand in hand, feeling the warmth of the sun and the quiet peace of the farm. The bond between them had deepened beyond words, built not just on love, but on shared experiences, trust, and understanding. They had both faced storms, both literal and emotional, and had come out stronger, more aware of what mattered most. As evening approached, the sky turned shades of orange and pink. The soft glow bathed the farm in a warm light, highlighting the fields, the barn, and the fences they had repaired. Elena and Luke walked together across the property, taking in the beauty of the land they both loved. The work they had done was more than repairs. It was a symbol of renewal, a promise that they could overcome obstacles and create a life together. They stopped near the old oak tree by the creek, the same tree where they had paused many times before. Luke turned to Elena, his expression serious but tender. "Elena, I want you to know something," he said. "I've loved you for a long time. Even when we were apart, even when I didn't know if you'd come back, you were always in my heart. And now that you're here, I don't want to let you go." Elena felt a rush of emotion. She had spent years wondering if they could ever find their way back to each other, and now she knew the answer. "I love you too, Luke," she said softly. "I've always loved you. And I'm not leaving anymore. I want to be here, with you, for good." He smiled, relief and joy shining in his eyes. Without another word, he pulled her into a warm embrace, holding her close as if to reassure both of them that this time nothing would tear them apart. Elena rested her head on his shoulder, feeling safe and cherished. The world around them faded away. The farm, the fields, the creek, all of it seemed to pause for a moment, honoring their union. After a long moment, they pulled back slightly, their foreheads touching. "We'll make it work," Luke said softly. "No matter what comes, we'll face it together. This farm, this life, it's ours now." Elena nodded, tears of happiness streaming down her face. "Yes, ours," she whispered. The evening air grew cooler, and they walked slowly back to the farmhouse, hand in hand. The sky was painted with stars, and the moon cast a soft glow over the fields. The farm was peaceful, alive with the quiet sounds of nature, and Elena felt a sense of contentment she had never known in the city. She had found her place, her home, and most importantly, the person she wanted to share it with. That night, they sat together on the porch, watching the stars appear one by one. They talked softly about the future, plans for the farm, ideas for improving the land, and dreams they could pursue together. The conversation flowed easily, filled with laughter, hope, and the kind of quiet understanding that comes from truly knowing someone. Elena felt a deep sense of gratitude. The storm had been devastating, yes, but it had also brought clarity, forcing them to confront their feelings and realize what truly mattered. She had returned to the farm not just to help repair the damage, but to repair the bond with Luke. And now, standing here with him, she knew that bond was stronger than ever. As the night grew deeper, they leaned back on the porch, hands intertwined, watching the fireflies dance in the fields. The farm was quiet, safe, and full of promise. Elena felt a warmth in her heart, a sense of belonging she had never felt in the city. She had found her home, not just on the farm, but with Luke, and in the life they would build together. "Thank you for coming back," Luke said softly, breaking the comfortable silence. Elena smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. "Thank you for waiting," she replied. They stayed like that for a long time, simply enjoying the quiet, the connection, and the promise of tomorrow. The storms of the past had passed, leaving behind not destruction, but opportunity. Opportunity for love, for growth, and for a life built together. And in that moment, Elena knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter filled with hope, understanding, and a love that had finally found its way home. Together, they would face the future, side by side, hearts open, ready for whatever came next. The farm was alive, their love was alive, and for the first time in a long while, Elena felt completely at peace.